we do have our interview with Steve Popper still lined up, but an interesting underlying story that we haven't talked much of on this show. Immanuel Quickley, he's doing an extension.
Yeah.
The deadline is tonight actually at 6 p.m. Will the Knicks get an Immanuel Quickley extension done? What will the number be? Drama ensuing, but thankfully, it's funny how circumstances just come together.
Once we start talking basketball, the light lights up, starts blinking.
Amazing.
Like something is something about to go down, Josh?
Something's about to go down, and we're about to find out from one very own Steve Popper of Newsday Sports. He's a Knicks and NBA columnist for Newsday. He's been that since August 2018 in that role. Now, the Knicks opened their 2023-24 season at home against the Boston Celtics on Wednesday night. Devin, I can read the Celtics.
The Celtics. It's going to be a good night.
And obviously, ahead of that game, once again, who better to talk to than Mr. Steve Popper? How are we doing today, Steve?
Good. A little crazy, but good. Still waiting. They're taking this the way they do, right to the deadline.
Yeah, you know it. You know it. Listen, man, I had some other questions lined up, but I have to ask. With the Immanuel Quickley thing going on, obviously 6 p.m. is the deadline. We've seen other players like Jaden McDaniels from Minnesota and other, various NBA players that went in the same draft.
He got paid.
Got the bag. So what are you hearing as far as what's going on with Quickley and the Knicks?
I think it's a real tough decision for the Knicks because you got to think of it this way, that he's a valuable piece, runner-up sixth man of the year last year. He's a talented player. He's been a big part of what they've done. But on the other hand, he's not a starter. He's not going to be a starter here. Jalen Brunson is Knick for life. So, you've got to consider how much you want to pay, what you want to put into your cap for him. And I think right now those numbers don't match up. Him coming off, what was obviously a great year for him and feeling he needs to be paid. I think to me, and I could be wrong, but I almost feel like the way it's going to fall here is that you make him play it out this year and see where you're at. He only becomes a restricted free agent next summer, so it's not like you're giving him away. You're letting him prove his value out there. Do I doubt that someone's going to give him an offer next summer? I don't. I think he's a talented player. He's proven to be a scorer, much improved defensively last year. So I think he's an important piece to what they do, but being that Jalen Brunson plays about 30 minutes a night, 35 minutes a night, you've got to decide just how valuable this position and this piece is to you. And I think that's where they're at a crossroads here where it just doesn't match up timing-wise for both the team and the player. So I think kind of putting it on hold for a year is the most important, probably the best way to do it right now.
Yeah, really the crux of the issue. Obviously, Immanuel Quickley is talented, but for a sixth man paying him upwards of $100 million, that's a tough decision.
You putting him over Quentin Grimes and Josh Hart?
Yeah.
It's tough to say.
It's tough. Immanuel Quickley just under 15 points per game and just under 29 minutes per game last season. Also today, you had Tom Thibodeau at a press conference say that he hopes, obviously, Quickley and the Knicks can find a common ground. But as far as I know, Thibs' contract and those contract extension talks haven't gone too far either. Thibs' contract does run all the way through 2025, I believe.
Yeah, he's got 2 years here. And look, you don't want to go into a again, the lame duck situation with a coach, especially a coach who takes the approach that Thibodeau does. You don't want someone like that ever to be a lame duck, where players feel like they can tune him out. Because I think a lot of what this team relies on is what Tom brings, that they're ready and prepared every night, that he gets the most out of, sort of gets the blood from stones with these guys. So I think that's another one. But I think, the thing with this team right now is they're so tied in together. Thibodeau to Leon Rose to Jalen Brunson, Rick Brunson. It's and even Gerson Rosas now as the GM has a history with Tom. So I think they're all on the same page. I think as long as Tom wants to do this and his voice hasn't worn out on these guys, he'll get if he wants to keep going beyond this contract, he'll be able to. And look, I think that here's the basic crux of it is they're successful with Tom, and that's something this organization has not been in a long time. They were dysfunctional, and now I think, players around the league see them in a different light. Some of that is credited to Leon Rose and the work that he's done, but some of it is definitely Thibodeau and what he's gotten out of players and how players respect him now. And part of that is having the right kind of guys too, who are willing to do that, which brings you back to Quickley. He's a guy who's worked to get better. So I think it all sort of is synchronous right now that these pieces all sort of fit together, and that's why you want to kind of hold it, as long as you can. And on that note, continuity this year is probably the biggest thing they have going for them. They didn't make a big move, but they just feel like this group is going to grow together.
On the topic of Tom Thibodeau, he likes to keep a tight rotation. And you got a lot of perimeter players. You got Brunson and RJ, Quentin Grimes, Immanuel Quickley, which you've been talking about. I can go on. Obviously, you signed DiVincenzo, Josh Hart you signed to an extension. So you got a lot of guys at the guard position. What does the front office want to do with that, influx of guys? There's just so many guards that really I don't know where they fit on this team.
Well, I think it's sort of a reflection of what the NBA is like now. Like, we say guards, but Josh Hart is going to be the backup power forward. And it's not what, everyone's like, how can he do that? How can he go against Giannis when he's 6'4"? But, you think Julius Randle is, again, always among the league leader in minutes played per game. So you're talking about, filling in for 12 minutes, 13 minutes a night against the other team's second string power forward. And what they're giving up in size, I think, giving up Toppin and getting DiVincenzo, is they feel that there's a very versatile group that they can switch, guys who can play bigger than they are. Hart is a guy who can guard 1 to 4, 1 to 5. And I think they think DiVincenzo is very much like that, could guard 1 to 3 or 1 to 4. They kind of feel like that second unit will be able to do that, and really everybody can kind of get out and run. It just gives them a different look than, Obi, who was not a very good defender. So you're giving up size, but you're getting something else in, a perimeter ability to defend on the perimeter, which is such a big part of the game these days.
Once again, Newsday Sports Knicks and NBA columnist Steve Popper joining WHPC Sports Talk. Devin, you had a question.
So with RJ Barrett, everyone's circling around RJ Barrett. So he did very well in this past postseason against the Cavs and the Heat. He did very well, and then he went on to go into the FIBA League for Canada with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and he excelled very well. Other than 2 games where he shot 1 for 10 and 1 for 8, he shot very well and continued his success after the postseason. So I want to ask you if you think that anything's going to change, if he's going to keep this hot streak that he's been going since the postseason in the FIBA League, and if he's going to continue this in the regular season, because in the past he has never been able to be efficient in the regular season. So I want to know if you think he's going to be able to finally become efficient.
Yeah, we spoke to him about this exact thing, about what this FIBA World Cup experience does for him and the postseason also. And I think, look, the one thing that we forget sometimes, he's been around so long, he's one of the longest tenured Knicks, is that he's 23 years old, and he's going to be 23 this season. That he's still very young, and he's still growing, into his game. I think experiences like what he had in the playoffs last year, and experiences like the FIBA World Cup, including, finishing ahead of Team USA with Brunson and Hart, sort of give him the confidence. And I think, I guess the other factor I would say too is that last summer, he was sort of in the spot that Quickley's in, and he took the tact of not wanting to do contact work when he was, as he was getting ready for deciding whether he was going to get the extension or not. He didn't want to risk an injury. So I think he came in and got off to a slow start, and some of the regular season seemed lost him. And also adapting to a new role with Brunson, the ball was out of his hands a lot more than it had been in the past. Mm-hmm. But, this is a guy who basically averages about 20 points a game at 23 years old. That's what he's been averaging up to this point. He had one good year 3 seasons ago from 3-point range, and really hasn't had it since. I think that's what we've got to hope, that he kind of grows into that. And it becomes a more reliable shooter. Because look, that shot's going to be open with Randall and Brunson. What they do offensively, he's going to get that opportunity, and I think that's what they see is they want to see that he's going to be able to convert that. And there's pressure on him too. As much as he's got the contract and has delivered for them, there are minutes that can be taken away from him, whether it's Quickley, whether it's DiVincenzo, Hart, any of these guys on the second unit. So you have to perform in this group. There's pressure to keep your place in the rotation here. I think that they feel that he's just getting better every year and growing and being part of Thibodeau's system. I just think that a year with Brunson, another year with Randall, playing under this system, the experience that he had, I wouldn't be surprised to see him kind of take a leap forward this year.
Now, Steve, it's funny we're talking about all the moving parts with the roster and obviously the contracts with all these young players, because it's funny, no matter who you listen to in the NBA media, the talk around the Knicks and Leon Rose and their whole plan with this short term is that all you hear, you got to land a superstar. You got to land somebody who's going to be a difference maker, who's going to vault you into immediate contention. In your opinion, what's the likelihood that actually happens within the next 3 years with the way the Knicks are going?
Donovan Mitchell?
Yeah, that's down on him.
I think it will. And look, as much as I say continuity and they're building here, I think that is a part of what the plan is here. And that's going to be part of what you do with, decisions you do with Immanuel Quickley here. And on a far different note, the decisions that they made with Evan Fournier, who everything I heard from people in the organization was if they couldn't make a deal for him this summer, they were going to do the right thing by him and release him, do a buyout and let him go, kind of try and resurrect his career somewhere else. They didn't do that because he's a trade chip. He's an $18 million piece that you can put into a deal for a star player. And I think that there are connections with Leon Rose and Tom Thibodeau with a lot of guys. I think Donovan Mitchell, I do think Cleveland's going to be good this year. But, boy, if they're not, he's a short-term contract there. And he's made it very clear that he thought he was coming to New York and he'd like to be in New York. So I wouldn't be shocked if that comes to a point where the Cavs realize we've got to do what we can to kind of pick up the pieces here. I think that they don't want to lose him for nothing. So I think that's something. But I don't think it's just him. I think it's Joel Embiid, it's Karl Anthony Towns. I think they're monitoring all of these. Towns isn't somebody that I would do it for, but I think that they're going to be in the mix for all these names, and I think that's sort of what they've gotten to here, where they have developed pieces that they can use in a trade. They have a lot of draft assets. They have contracts that are movable, and that's sort of what the decision they have to make here on Quickley is. Do you want him to be basically you lose the ability to trade him in the next year if you sign this extension? Because his contract, the way the cap works, he's worth. You've got to bring in. You can only bring back half of what you give out in numbers for him. So it's complicated, but I think that they're definitely on the lookout for that, and they will eventually. And whether it's Mitchell or Embiid or whoever, I think it's going to happen at some point.
Yeah, I agree with you on Karl Anthony Towns. That's not necessarily who I would trade all those picks and players for, but that Embiid situation is definitely going to be interesting to watch, especially with what's going on with James Harden. Newsday Sports, Knicks and NBA columnist once again, Steve Popper joining WHPC Sports Talk. Liam?
Yeah, Obi Toppin was traded, obviously, because of the lack of use. Do you think, obviously with the addition of DiVincenzo, and then you traded for Hart last year, and now you signed him to a bit of an extension, are the Knicks going to let their draft picks, and now we're talking about Donovan Mitchell as well, who's another guard, and I was just talking about the amount of guards that the Knicks have on their roster, are they going to let their draft picks like Quentin Grimes or Immanuel Quickley fall to the wayside in favor of some signings or trades that they make for higher level players?
Well, that's the dilemma, and I think that's the problem here is that you build these guys up to either use them or use them in a deal, and that's someone like I know they're very high on Grimes. Thibodeau loves him, but at some point, if Donovan Mitchell's the player that's available, is that something you move? And maybe you do because he becomes expendable. Maybe RJ Barrett becomes expendable. I think that's what you've got to decide is just how you value your own pieces versus, the so-called stars. And Donovan Mitchell is a star. So I think that's the way that they'll have to decide. And, smarter men than me in the game will make that decision because there's a lot of pressure on it. But I think that's sort of where they're at now. Right now is just building those assets so that you can have this good problem that they haven't had in a while.
Yeah, so you brought up Julius Randle earlier, and I want to get your thoughts on with Julius Randle. He's been incredible over the last 4 seasons. He's been incredible, averaging 20 a game. He's been averaging almost 10 rebounds a game. He's been doing very well. Like on the defensive end, you can't expect very much from him, but with the fact of Julius Randle, he's healthy. He's playing 70-plus games almost every single season. But it seems that every single time he gets to the playoffs, he loses it every single time. So, like, season, 37% from field, 25 from 3, 70 from free throw, 16 a game in the postseason after 10 games. And that's just not what you want from your star players. So, like, is it done for Randle after this year?
No, I think, what you've got to take into consideration is last summer, in the postseason, he was playing hurt. He was injured. He missed the last 5 games of the year. Came back, tried to come back with that ankle. Was clearly not himself, and then injured it again. So he was not the player you want him to be, or that he could be at that point. And that's unfortunate for them. Is that Randall and Brunson both were not at full strength, and that sort of gets you to your could you have beaten Miami if they were? It's hard to say. But I don't think they judge Randall off of that playoff series. He's a guy who's a gamer who tries to play every game. Is always in there till the end of the year. Tries to play 82 games a year. Maybe that wasn't the best idea. Maybe that's why he breaks down. I don't think that's the case. I think it was more of a flukish injury with the ankle. But I think they still have a lot of faith in him. And I think, do I think that if, the right trade came up, would they use him in it? Maybe they would, because they're going to have to get to a decision with him in a couple of years now on an extension also. And they've got to weigh age and performance. But I do think that look, I'll say this, that it takes a certain player to play in New York, and guys like him and RJ Barrett have proven that they can do it. Brunson has, and that's not a small thing to me. So I think that guys who can do it, who can handle the pressure of the Garden, there's something to be said for that.
Yeah, Julius Randle, polarizing figure on Knicks Twitter. Steve, I don't know how familiar you are with the happenings on Knicks Twitter. I know I do follow you on Twitter. I know you have an account.
I am familiar, and I know the critics. And look, this is what I say is, there are guys who it's not easy to find somebody who averages 25 and 10 or 24 and 10 and 6, whatever assists he had. Very few guys in the game that can do that. He's hard to stop. He's a tough guy. I think there's something again to be said for him, and it's very easy to have that backup quarterback thought of, like there were a lot of people calling for Obi Toppin last year and in recent years. And the thing is, it's pretty simple to Tom Thibodeau. Is their scheme is built around drawing 2 defenders, and you have to double team Julius, and you don't have to double team Obi Toppin. So that's the simplest math I can give you. Is that Obi was good at finishing the open shots created by someone else. Julius is good at creating those opportunities for himself and others. And I sort of say it the same way I used to say it with Carmelo, that I think fans aren't going to realize what they had until it's gone.
Yeah, Julius Randle, top 10 in the league last season, double teams drawn. I do have one final question for you, Steve.
Sure.
Newsday Sports, Knicks and NBA columnist Steve Popper. Once again, very thankful you're joining WHPC Sports Talk today. So the Knicks, obviously, I'm a fan, the fan base. We have depending on who you talk to, a wide-ranging spectrum of expectations. So I'll ask the columnist, what exactly in terms of record, playoff finish, what are you expecting out of this Knicks unit as is heading into 23-24?
We just have our predictions actually coming out at Wednesday's paper.
Okay.
And I picked them to finish around the same win total, I think. I think they'll be around 47, 48 wins.
Do you think they finish above the Sixers and Cavs this season?
And when we did the top, we ranked them 1 to 15. I have them in fourth place, behind the Cavs, ahead of the Sixers.
Okay.
And honestly, when I was making the list, I would have had the Sixers ahead of them if they weren't in chaotic stage right now. But
Daryl Morey,
right, with the uncertainty about James Harden. So to me, I put them in fourth place. I think they're going to kind of finish right around there. I think I think they'll be a better team than last year. Having Brunson for a full year, under Thibodeau in New York, having Josh Hart for a training camp and a full season. DiVincenzo, I think, will fit nicely and give you more than Obi Toppin gives you. And I think guys like Grimes and Barrett, who are the 23-year-old starters, will continue to get better. And so I think, I think sort of like Brunson and Randall are the building blocks for this whole thing. But I think those pieces around them are going to continue to get better. And who knows? Maybe Mitchell Robinson will hit a jump shot one year.
maybe. Pigs
go crying on Snapchat.
Pigs will fly, and Mitchell Robinson will hit some jump shots. Once again, Steve, that NBA season preview for 23. That's Wednesday on Newsday.
Yep, and some of it's starting. I think we tweeted out some of the Eastern Conference predictions, little charts and stuff already on the website now, so they can get that anytime they want. Newsday.com.
All right, we'll definitely make sure we check that out. Once again, Newsday Sports, Knicks and NBA columnist and beat writer Steve Popper. Thank you once again. Thank you for joining WHPC Sports Talk today.
Thank you, Steve.
You got it. Anytime, guys.